Thanks,
Dumbo Jomde de Shirwa Jomba Yanda Zobe Sange Ribala Shabra Devora Shemba de Jamba Jive Kalu Yuala Name Bala Name Nange Dumba Sange Debe Jawa Shaja Dubala Chatse Lo Chodo Jazo Che Dumba Jomde de Shirwa Rajumba Yanamba Zobe Zange Rivana Shazo Zemba Devora Sheva Jiti Jemba Givu Dube Kalo Girva Lana Meba Lada Menangi Tumba Sanje Jonde Nebe Yewa Shagya Tuba La Chazo Yodo Jazo Che O Tumba Jonde De Shin Shewa Rajumba Yanda bo zobe sange reba shazo demba dewa sheba jini jemba jewe palo jurwa la na meba la da mina ge tumba sange jonde debe shaja duba la jaze lo chudo jazo je o kanze gani zo rande saje de la gomba dembur Made jide de na joje zo de ze geba gyula jaza nanda buwa chodo zuzan wa yishi gyazo seri lumbora Chaba jide zona lame wa gombo kyuni gyula jaza senjo demba jime dawe sha sendo trawa gyula jaza Nidri jena siva suma ji nyame jinji gyula jazalo Gumbu tuji jenemba tamji gembe tomba wo Sona yunde gyazo shinde jen jela jazalo Tabe deja trevara gyu gewe nyezon le rojim Chidu dundan shugyu kwa shigyu chela jazalo Rone rove layan labo dala radune Shinge dambo yende yendu layan jazalo Deva chiyam mejasing Yewa puzum sobar gyu rangi sene yonzu Tene sange temba yi karmara re marmeda Gyuma seba chuburda melan lodan tendo Duje jedan didrata sonan di tamje ziba yi Gohan dole gengi radu Gada nadan chiwe lakule sibe sole do Dubara sho
Page 3. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. When the supreme among humans, you were born on this earth, you faced out 7 strides, and said, I am supreme in this world. To you who are wise in, I prostrate. With pure bodies, formed supremely pure, wisdom ocean like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds, winner of the best, Lord, to you I prostrate. With the supreme signs, face like a spotless moon, color like gold, to you I prostrate. You are immaculate, 3 worlds are not. Incomparably wise one, to you I prostrate. The Savior having great compassion, the Founder having all understanding, the field of merit with qualities like a vast ocean, to you, the one God of thusness, I prostrate. The purity which makes one free from attachment, the virtue which frees one from the lower realms, the one path, the sublime pure reality, to that dharma which pacifies, I prostrate. Those who are liberated and who also show the path of liberation, the holy field qualified with realizations, who are devoted to the moral precepts, the sublime community intending for virtue, I prostrate. Do not commit any unvirtuous actions, perform only perfect virtuous acts, Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a mirage, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the four faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by waves of aging, sickness, and death.
Baba Gujo Sa Selo Digi Dagi Toba Duji Chundende Jabuga Jabu Bumbore Longi Longi Gindu Jimbo Dan Janju Sembe Gindu Jimbo Dan Ta Chido Judo Deze Chundende Samo Lawa Shi Jawe Chugi Nan Pingen Zela Nyumbara Shuzo Yang Deze Janju Semba Semba Jimbo Baba Shereze Wanchu ye paru do chemba samo cheba nila nambara tashi kumbo ngabo deda laya rashi je tombara nambara tau ene sanje je tu sedan demba shari bu chanju semba semba chembo baba chere onju la dige je meso riji ku gala la shera je paru do chemba samo cheba cheba deba de jidar labar cha dige je meba dan chanju semba semba chembo baba chere 원주게 세단 덴바 샤레 다데 볼란데 제메소 샤리부 리게보 리게보 알라라 샤라게 바르데 제바사모 제바 제반도 바데 제달라 바르자와르자데 봄봉아 보데 달라야라 시게 동버 남바리야 다바 제수 타오 두동바 동바니 수소 불레 동바니 제마yen 동바니 레장 수제마이 논데 신도 도라단 두시단 두제단 남바라 세바난 동바오 샤레보 데다 최단제 동바니 데스니메 바마게바 마가바 제마메바 제마다 저와 저와메 강화메 바고 샤레보 데나와나 동바니 라수메 소와메 두시메 두지메 남바라 세바메 비메 나와메 나메 제메 루메 이메 수메 자메 디메 로메 레자메 주메 도메 게 가메 바네 이게 가메 이게 남바라 세베 가게 바도 야메도 아레바메 마레바 세바네 가시메 가시 세베 바제요 야메도 데제도 동에 와당 군조 와당 보바당 라메 이시메 토바메 마도바 야메도 자레보 데다와나 자주 삼바나 토바메 비칠 셰라게 바르도 쳔 벤제네데 셈라 제바메 제라메 데 친제로레 신도 네네 냥엘레 데베 타르 친도노 손도 남바 단제 담제 자셔라게 바르도 쳔바라 테네 라나메 바야다 바르도 베장주도 몬바르도 바르사 예소 데라 셰라제 바르도 쳔베나 리보 쳔베나 라나메 베나 메냥바다 냥베나 도메 담제라도 시월 제베나 미즈베나 덴바 시월 자데 셰라게 바르도 쳔베 아메 바다야다 가데 가데 바라 상가데 부디소 셰레보 장조 셈바 셈바 쳔보 데다 셰라게 바르도 쳔바 당본라 타버르 차오 네네 좀덴데 딩에 젠데레 신네 장조 셈바 셈바 쳔보 바바 젤레세 원줄라 레소 셰자와 젠네 레소 리제부 데데시노 데데젠데 젠라 주게 템바 신도 셰라게 바르도 쳔바 사모라 쳔바자데 비신샤바나 갸제수 이랑 존덴데게 되게 제가 셀네 세단데마 샤르다데 부단 조sem바 sem바 쳔보 바바 쳔네 원주다 함제다 덴베 포르데다 나다 미다 라마인단 지스르제 베제데 이랑데 존덴데게 손바 모바르드 도 Page 11. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgriha, vultures speak, together with a great assembly of monks and Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was totally absorbed in the concentration that examines all phenomena, called profound illumination. And at the same time, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, was engaged in the profound practice of the wisdom Gambhya, analyzing the five aggregates by nature
Then through the inspiration of the Buddha, the Venerable Shantideva spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, how should those of good family learn who wish to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, replied to the Venerable Shariputra, saying, O Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of good family wishes to follow the profound practice of the wisdom gone beyond, should look at it like this, analyzing the five aggregates by nature empty. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, karmic formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, all phenomena are empty without characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing. They are neither impure nor free from impurity. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no karmic formations, no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There are no spheres of the eyes up to no spheres of the mind. There are none of these all the way up to the sphere of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, nor is there destruction of ignorance. There are none of these all the way up to, there is no old age and death, nor is there destruction of old age and death. Thus there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, but no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, all bodhisattvas hold to the wisdom gone beyond, and because there is no fear of mind, they have no fear. Passing utterly beyond falsity, they pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas of the three times, by relying on the wisdom gone beyond, fully and clearly awakened to unsurpassed, most perfect and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the wisdom gone beyond, the mantra of great insight, the unequaled and unsurpassed mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as the truth, where there is no exception. The mantra of wisdom gone beyond is proclaimed. Tayanda Gandhi Gandhi Vara Sangandhi O Shari, this is how Bodhisattva Mahasattva should learn the profound wisdom gone beyond. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and praised the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, very good, O son of good family. It is exactly like that. The profound wisdom gone beyond should be practiced exactly as you have said, and then the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra, the noble Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world with its gods, men, anti-gods, and spirits, their hearts full of joy, praise the one who has so many so to know discourse on the essence of the wisdom gone beyond.
상마다 드링하고 사고고 아니 다 진주 지다 차대 그래서 당하고 진주 그래서 뭐다 참 대버지 비치 이나는 자세 장주 선박 죄봐라 럽실 때마 근데 이게 또 나도 뭔지 장주 선박는지 지들 라바 나신 말한도야 아니 직다 냠랭이 되는 진주 당고 퇴가 삼바 공부하시는 라보이래 손지.
Now you all, it's Thursday, and the lecture on Thursdays is in the way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, and among the Dharma, and particularly the Mahayana Dharma. Here are trainings of the conduct of Bodhisattvas, just as Bodhisattvas of the past practiced. In just the very same way will we, training, first listening, then contemplating, and then cultivating.
다 내가 다 자세 장주 선배 줘봐라. 다 뭐게 지다 장주 선배 남지 아니 자세 장주 선배 줘봐라. 남네 아니 가르쳐야나 랑기다 대화 탐지 두바 네 탐지 세바 어디나 요레스 다 디펠 체네 랑기장 만한도 대화 되바래 동에 메되바래 인데 대화 두고 요레 동에 메되바 인데 동에 세고 요레 제가 맞아야 되나 생각 보고 요레스
Not just as bodhisattvas of the past engaged in their trainings, we too will train with the end in mind of achieving all there is in contentment and well-being and dispelling and alleviating all pain and sorrow. Just as the bodhisattvas of the past have done, we will do just the same. As pain and sorrow is undesirable and contentment is desirable, so we train just as they have.
다 되게 이거 지난다 최 법에 간다 취체 세고디 다 간다 지기 취체 버스 지기 취치기 인신들이 라는 것도 취체야 그 무슨이 말해 무슨이 차요 말했다 이제 좀마다 취체 세고 다 간다 랑기 대화직 누구고 여바당 동에 민두바 세고 여바 인도 다고 딜을 굉장히 딜을 때는 안 맞아 취체 세고 같이 우리 알아서
Now, when it is said you must do just this, you must practice just that dharma, I will practice just that dharma. These expressions don't describe our particular tradition, for our tradition takes in mind the need to achieve contentment, to dispel pain and sorrow, and in view of these, the accomplishment of contentment and the dispelling of sorrow, in view of these, urges one to practice dharma.
오예, 또디는 최 티바 침을 최세 세리즈마다 간다를 랑기 대와 침을 주비 대와 타르투바 랑기 대와 신기 두바 탐지 루투야 대와 되게 두비 인스리 티바 침을 최세 대시들 레벨에서
And when mention is made of the Mahayana Dharma, this means to achieve for oneself the ultimate in contentment, the most significant form of contentment. And it means to realize this both for oneself and for all others. And in this way, this becomes Mahayana Dharma.
오예, 이 인디즈마 상아서 대와 스님 상아줄었다 대와 스즈 수수 되베디 대와 수수 민두바디 동행세 세상다 되어버디 수 있는 되어버디 가오 대화 징계로와 민두바지는 꼭 동행하는 어느 라운드 같이도 봐 세상 뒤인디서 맞다 랑이 되어봐 되어봐들라야 다 랑이 되어봐 타예 버려 민두바들라야 되나지 뭐 잠깐만 버려 뒤숨어
And so what is desirable is satisfaction. What is undesirable is dissatisfaction. And this is true for whoever you are, that what is found desirable when possessed is cause of gratification, and whatever that is undesirable when met with is cause for sorrow. And there are causes for these that are innumerable themselves.
오예, 세상다 전주심에 저발을 라비온데 아니다 대화도 동행 주시자간디 믹세지를 해서
It's a particular explanation, the explanation of pain and sorrow and of contentment that has to do with the trainings in the way of the Bodhisattva.
오예, 아니 주주 그러나 대화도 동행 모두 간에 제어해서나 아니 지대행기 대화 진입아 가주 대화 같이 되는 하나도 대배 대화 가주 주어봐 이나 양스 대탐지 현대 되어버려 중화래스 어디 숨
And in the way of the Bodhisattva, how is it that satisfaction and dissatisfaction are introduced in this way? That the cause for every personal satisfaction experienced is the wish to bring about the well-being of others.
오예, 이 인도마다 지대나는 것도 믿어봐 동행 생겨져 왔다 디 근데 간제 중화래스 원래로 텔레비전마다 지대 동행 진입바스 지대나는 거하고 믿어봐 동행 간제 주어봐 이나 양스 진입바 대군 랑데 되려 중스 랑수도 되어 되버들래 근데 중화래스 모두시기 어래서
And again, the introduction is made to satisfaction and dissatisfaction in light of the training of the Bodhisattvas in this way. Where do pains and sorrows come from? All worldly pain and sorrow comes from the desire to meet one's own needs and satisfy oneself.
오예, 다 된다서 전주고 책이 된다 돌르잖아. 대화 간에 중화래스 좋았다. 아니 대화의 신 대화 되봐. 신 대화 신라 대화 때로 신라 대화 되봐. 텔레 아니 대화 강가 연구래 대화 중세 고들에 대화 연구래스. 랑 대화 미디어바디 안에 중화래스나. 근데 랑 누가 미디어바디 랑 대화 신 대화 열 신기 대화 예어 도와 인자 아니 동해 자산 중화레스 어디 대시제그레스.
So then, where does contentment come from? Personal contentment comes from the wish to see other sentient beings contented and in their well-being. All well-being and all personal satisfaction come from this, the desire for others to be well. And all that is undesirable, that is pain and sorrow, while one wishes for personal satisfaction, all that one meets by way of pain and sorrow comes from the disregard for the well-being of others in pursuit of one's own well-being alone.
뭐야, 다 된대. 아니 중에 백하리어레스. 신 대화 되봐. 때는 대화 중화다. 그런 대화 되버지 동해 중화기. 아니 콩다 백하리어레스나. 아니 가르쳤나? 장주선 비냐면 랑 심바. 대족이 아니 대당 한달 장주선 비 동해 양수 말라니게 쳐버 일었다고 그랬어. 장주선 수수랑 장주선지 동해 장주선지 왜 냠내 마진이다. 아니 자세 장주선 봐도 그 장주선 냠내 제심바 이익이 쳐버를 따는 시행을 해서 숨어라습니다.
What support is given for this, that all that is unwanted, pain and sorrow that we meet comes from disregard for others, and satisfaction coming from regard for others? Where is the support for this? It is said that it will be understood when one observes the difference between the practices of the Bodhisattvas who have begun their practice and are in their training, and those who do not train. The difference between the two will make this apparent to one.
근데 이들다 이제 지났어. 이제 근데 이들다 아주 냠슬랭이 좀 망고여로 냠내 첼 메다고 고메 요래 되네 이제 바게다 라는데 lunga 그 냠내 좀 망고 체 요래 이나네다 가나네다 냠내 체가 초도 주와 냠내 체는 편도 체쇼 요바 냠내 탈치 뭐 대화 탈치 뭐 룩투야 되 냠내 다 체라 다 장주고 있는데 공부를 장주 쓰는데 망고나 시행기 냠내 가르쳐 보이나야 아니 대화 친구들이 톡톡 말해서 제가 다 장주 쓰는 공부이나 대화 타다 초 톡톡을 해서 또 탈도 되래서
With this reason as support, then, where there are the many meditations there are, including meditation upon impermanence and awareness of all activities of body and speech, and among all of these meditations, the best, the most beneficial for realizing the ultimate in well-being is meditation upon the awakening mind, Bodhichitta. It realizes the greatest in the way of satisfaction. Without it, that greatest form of satisfaction cannot be realized. That's it, ultimately, Bodhichitta, to realize the greatest form of contentment.
Oh yeah. 당어마 걸어 최 당고타는 조지 걸어 배 아니 가담배 나최 다르바로 가담배 최 다르바로 가담배 최 다르도 많은 가담배 최가 조지 로마 조디 저 돈데 말와 제가 인디서 맞다 저 권한도 아니 바게 쇼데도 아니 조지 쇼사가 하간저로 하간데로 아니 미주가 거라지 이 쳐봐 그 차세 마무치기 열어와 아니 제대로 니마직 매직 안도 거라도요 아니 거라도 되듯이 아니 가르쳐 봐서는 홀라 대화 좀더 맞지 대화 좀더 맞으면 조지기다 기도 도디마 대화 좀더 맞지 버는 대화 좀더 맞지도 좀 아니 대화 좀더 뭐 홀라지 가르쳐 아저나 거라 쳐봐다 시우 약보라 공부를 거라 잡아도 손은 침보를 약보래 이내 저랑 취지 제바이나 내가 약으로 왔어 거라 잡아도 약보래 돼 이내 저랑 취지 제바이나 아니 내가 뭐 가지 야가 용으로 왔어 갑자기 나를 예측소로
The Dharmas spread to Tibet, spreading with Atisha. When it is said then, the Kadamba Dharma had spread to Tibet. It had spread through Atisha, Lord Atisha, whose principal student among many students was Drompa. And there was a temple there where Atisha resided, and students would circumambulate the temple, offering homage and prostrations. And one day, there was a person there circumambulating the temple, and they met with Drompa along the way. And Drompa was this principal disciple of Atisha. Wasn't he Drompa, principal disciple of Atisha? And a circumambulator met this Drompa there, and Drompa advised him, well, it is excellent and very meritorious that you circumambulate as you do. Yet, nevertheless, wouldn't it be even better if you were to practice dharma?
Boy, so you're going to love the Java in you. Samana, Haritan, meeting Samana, Haritan. Yeah, the coach about the later church at Chagi Samara, the later. The watching with church in the law, better law, and in better to conduit the listener Yaga inside the Esami. No could send the changing, and could come back to Suruji la Chi, Ulagan Susan, co. Better laws in some law, and those conduit did. And you're going to jar down the pair. It is a photon for the chill law, the Chiraya, what a coach in it. Chill law, but the church around in the Gagres, young one getting some lessons.
Then this person thought, well, then it must be that there's something more than circumambulation. Perhaps it is dharma to read Mahayana scripture, read them and recite them. So this circumambulator removed themselves to a corner there in the temple and read the scriptures of the Mahayana Dharma, and read these and recited these, and then again was come upon by Drompa, and Drompa observed again, well, isn't it great to see you read and recite Mahayana scriptures? But wouldn't it be better yet if you were to practice Dharma?
Boy, so that's a meeting, Haritan. That's hard, and I am sure Yabu child me. A better law, I cheer Yabu child, that I carry one of that. Oh, that gom jabu is a gom jana and bed. That one in church having is a some. I'm going to run a lawyer, and go gom jab the gom jam. Better lawyer than the Boraba shot me to gomi jabs did it. And Jordan, yeah, cheer the Karchi. Not the gom jabs, I'll gom joy, what in nature and church. Church in a gallery, come Java, church in a gallery, and you're going to some lessons.
And this person then reflected, well, perhaps there's something more that is dharma apart from reading scriptures. Well, then it might well be meditation itself. That likely is dharma itself. Then this person went into the temple, put aside the scriptures they were reading, closed their eyes, and meditated there. And Drompa came upon them and said, whoa, what are you doing now? Here you are meditating, yet again, wouldn't it be better yet if you practice Dharma now?
It's the one called Midigata. Chicks in there, Tamut Pejalor, Chia, Chim to see what. And it's Coraton, Chim, Gom Generim, called. Kalicho some Tapshi Manian and some town then. No call of the Jordan the Moran. Tamacho Kalicho, Kalicho Kalicho, yeah, to a tansher. Chuga Kalicho, to a town, and to what the Nandela, the Jordan the body. Chose Kiran, so chose the Kiran, the Wara, Kiran, cellular town, Chinese song is. Or the church, the culture conditions the main cellular dance, still in Japanese.
So here the person is reflecting all over again. Here prostrations aren't dharma. Circumambulation is apparently not dharma. Reading Mahayana scriptures is apparently not dharma. And now I'm left with nothing to identify as dharma. Where does that leave me? They were pondering. what is left for me to do? They were pondering, and again, Drum Tompa came upon them. And this time the person asked Drum Tompa, what am I to do? And Drum Tompa replied, you. This life, you must dispense with it. This life, you must dispense with it. 2 times and a 3rd time. And this was Drum Tompa's reply.
Oh, yes, that's a lot of things. And that countries was sometimes landing. And that Suzu Yaman and Jana countries are best. Negative to Toyota, yes, must. Also, that's a lot of things. That's a lot of things. That Carlo time is
Sigi can right?
oh, I think daughter of Martha, she could joke.
This life, dispense with it. As a reply, what sort of reply is this? And how are we to apply such an answer to a practice? Now, this is my question, not as Drum Tompa. My question as Geshe-Konjo to you. So when asked, when urged, dispense with your life, how do you interpret that? If we immediately associate dispensing with one's life with one's death, then that's only to take quite a loss, isn't it? Then in ordinary society, yet nevertheless in ordinary society, when we think of sacrificing our life, this amounts to us, to our death. Yet if we were to think like that, to dispense with one's life is to die, then that is to die without yet having practiced the Dharma, which would have been quite a loss.
Oh, yes, that is some Madonna, and that's a lot of careers. That's really rock, a little time. That's a lot of cousin, said the Shinja chair, the matches, but the call is.
Now, not thinking in this way, yet dispensing with one's life, how would one dispense with one's life? It would be to resist the seduction of this life.
Oh, that's said the Shinja careers. Susu, Chuatangina, Suzu, Mizina, Suzu, said the condition Shinja chair, the personal Tangaji to Jidin Chu, yes. Jidin Chu, Jedi, and another said the Lu Matan, Jidin Chu, Jedi, Chevajina, said the Lu Matan. Jidin Chu, Jedi, Majevina, said the Lu Towns. That did she get resumes.
Then what is the seductive attachment to this life? How does it arise? It arises through the 8 worldly dharmas. So long as one is absorbed in 8 worldly dharmas, one has yet to dispense with this life. When one does no longer absorb themselves with 8 worldly considerations, then they have dispensed with this life.
Oh, yeah, I'm around you imagine mother. The Sugu Chu, Chikidu, Midue, a contest some of Tangi, the contest says we be. And a church to the Suzu contest Tagi Besna. That's it in Chu Jet and Madribe, they are Karichetuna, Church Hebaret. Jidin Chu Jet didn't some town and show Karichetuna, it's Jidin Chever, Church of Mares. That is some chair,
When we speak of dharma and adharma, how would we consider dharma versus adharma, non-dharma? How would we measure dharma versus adharma, non-dharma? How would we consider it and how would we view it? So long as activities are intermixed with 8 worldly dharmas, then they aren't yet dharma. When, however, one has parted from their fixation upon 8 worldly dharmas, then their activities become dharma, and there's the line that makes the difference.
Oh, yes, as I did, Susu, Church, Mid 티로 전에 상점 제부 위에나 다 지된 취지 제도나 지대 제버려 다 지된 취지다 맞아 봐시는 아니 지금 밀라 차세 줘봐피 밀라 지바당 랑게 배 랍제 제 밀라 팬도 가르치셔야나 네 상황 취제버려 어떤 상태에서 취제보다 맞으면 상태에서
Then between dharma and adharma, when a line is drawn and there's a clear border, the line is drawn and the border becomes whether or not 8 worldly dharmas and their fixation is involved in the activity or is not. So long as the 8 worldly dharmas preoccupy one's activities are mundane. But when the practice of charitable giving, advising others, paying homage and making prostrations and the rest are divorced from 8 worldly considerations, they are dharma. Here, the line drawn between dharma and adharma.
다 대인도 취제디 아뭐 마송나 이제 취제 거라랑 원심에나 아니 그 지된 취제 제도 재미도 원심이 말로 와서
Now, if one doesn't know what these 8 worldly considerations are, then unfamiliar with them, one won't be able to identify dharma from adharma.
그나마 미지 원심 거기에나 미디 야가래 누가래 다라라 당고 미디 원초로 미디 원심에서 아니 신의 거다 야고래 두자랬어 신의 뜻이 개토로 와 어디나지 지대 취제 거랑 당고 뭐 마시나 아니 그 지대 취제 제 맞이 상대하고 말아와서
No differently from when evaluating a person, a better sort of person or a worse sort of person, it can't be done if the person is unknown and is only possible once the person is known and identifiable. So too, one cannot identify dharma from adharma until one is familiar with 8 worldly considerations.
대인이 다 지된 취제디 남상 셈는 지된 취제 나도 셈는 타딘 셔야지 소토고래서
So it should be 8 worldly considerations appear clearly to one and are known clearly and vividly.
다 대인이 지된 취제디 당고디 녀바 녀나 가 마녀나 마가와서 어디 상관이
The first 2 are to be delighted with gain, to become distraught when facing a loss.
근데 난 녀바 주나 가와 녀바 마주나 마가와 녀바 손 땀 녀부들와 녀부 주나 가와 녀바 마주나 마가와
The second pair, to delight in fame and to become distraught with ill fame.
다 되네스 이거는 나는 뛰어봐 주나 가 저라 땅에라는 가오세 메라 땅에라는 마가와서 뛰어는 가 맨은 마가와서 니에서
The third pair, to delight in praise, to become distraught when criticized.
되네 타마데나 데바 데나가 두나 메가와서 니들에서
And the final pair, to delight in satisfactions and to become distraught facing dissatisfaction.
제자까지 지내 취재 좀 장가적이네 장가대가라 해서
So that would be the list of 8 worldly considerations.
봐 예부되게 레레레 수마 삼로다나 레레라 마무 삼로다요 배나 녀나 가와다 마녀나 마가와 세야들라 아니 라라 직하게 잘라도 두도 톱소나 아니 배가고 마톰나 마가와 세야 보다 근데 대시 수수 대시 연구를 했습니다.
Considering each of the 8 worldly dharmas, one finds that within each there's a great deal to reflect upon. The idea of when meeting with some profit, something, some wealth, when one comes by these things or wealth, when one is delighted by that, and when one is distraught when those sorts of things are lost, that's the first pair.
대나시다 녀바 주나서도 라나 베테라 땅에 베케제 녀부시녀라나 랑 가와세 라나 메라 땅도 라나 마가와들 라프나 근데 라나 마가와 랑이 되바 여바게 배 자 그래 튀고 있나 양 랑도 가오체 랑이 되바 매배 자도 그래 튀고 있나 마가 지기나 제가 아니 고 간다 지된들 차버래 제가 지된들 차와 있는 거 동의제 우두고 그래서
And similarly, when one is praised or when one meets with others who flatter them, and when the flattery and the praise delights them, or when one meets with some criticism or hears something unpleasant said about them, and when this causes one to become distraught, these are mundane responses. And these are mundane dharmas as they become cause for pain and sorrow.
진짜 저는 때마다 같이 미야 버려다 그 중버려다 교육이 좀 그러나 지 맞았다 담 님버 잡아 되고 가르치는 가오체 그러나 그 중고 말다 교대 요말 교 교를 교 등재를 써서는 감사 마가와지로 어디 마가와지어디 아니 말아줬다 수수랑 동의기에다 세디기 차바이 세딜을 차버리 아니 이 추이도 안다 디게랑 제부들이 동의인 거였어
When others say of you, oh, you're an excellent sort of person, you're a very talented person. Expressions like this, versions of praise that we meet, when these gratify us, here is a mundane response. And when another says of us, oh, you're incapable of this, you are pathetic and unable to do this, you are bad, then when we become distraught, as these responses become cause for our own pain and sorrow, these are mundane responses, mundane considerations.
뭐야, 잘못도 지내나 되나가 누구는 메가스로 나랑 밖에 지금을 옮겨서 봐야 뭐 톱수는 아주 배요. 아마 그 쉬우 톱 중선에 가고 공부를. 나랑 지금 내 나자도 매봐. 아니 수수수 부디 대단로 정말 나랑 쉬우 배 대화 톱이 가고 싶으로 앞에 대우이 앞에 강에 매스 마대우이 기부이 나기로 뭐야. 세상에 나라도 다 지den게 나라다 나라도 지 수수그 되바 여버도 그러라는 수수배다 기바 대화이바 소화지기로 와 아주 그 소화 대화 간리지 요도 어디게 강가로다 아주 대화 지기로 와 대화 지야겠다 소화 대화세로 어디 탐지랑 아주 있다 존나 가와세 나라는 소화 동행에서나 뉴를 마지바스 뉴를 나서 셈을 마지바 아니 랑이 규노롱 저로서 쇼로 하나 땀이 봐 중앙지대에는 아주 마가와지로 어때 이 당말로 세대기 신자로 연구열에 이 중앙에는 세대의 신기열에 제 가르쳐 있는 동행 길을 두고 열에 손 거의 길을 두고 열에 동행 길을 두고 열에 손
To delight in satisfaction, to be distraught with dissatisfaction. For instance, coming by great wealth, and coming by great wealth, feeling great gratification, oh, look at what I've inherited, or feeling well, physically well, not being ill, and feeling of oneself, oh, I'm happy because I'm so well, I'm so healthy. Or whatever one wishes for, when they get that, as they have identified that thing as cause for satisfaction. This whole host of mundane responses are mundane insofar as they will result in pain. And then when physical pain and mental hardship, criticism from others, and the rest cause in us our becoming distraught, these are the mundane considerations, mundane because they are cause for samsara, and they are cause for pain and sorrow.
뭐야, 근데 땅 알아서 지속 나라 알아서 소화 대화 먼저 일단 돼야 소화 대화도 강가로 대화도 먼저 대화를 먼저 지기로 왔어. 이나야 이 대화 뭐네 말해. 그 동의 대화 짐바 꼭 남지 마도 동의기 불러 동의기 불러 봐 부리야 이도 콜로 동해스라고 소화 동해스라고 나랑도 소화 대화 짐발 이나양 코 대화문에 말해 그래서 그 대화문에 이나 그 유래매 봐 동해를 봐 유르모 모두 봐 우리의 매번 보고로 어디 말해 근데 소화 대화 내가 지기 대화를 엔치를 동해 교주인이 콜로 소화 대화 쓰는 그래서
And in ordinary life, the feeling of satisfaction, that feeling of satisfaction which we desire, we identify as satisfaction, yet we are misconstruing what is painful as satisfactory. It is actually a painful feeling that we construe as a pleasant feeling, for it is painful insofar as it will change into a painful feeling. For something to be satisfaction and contentment, it must be unchanging, it must be constant.
오야 티나시다 말아도 지도 나 하나 미스나 아니 랑라다 셈라 강에 율은 나자 어디서 주마 건강적으로 소화 동해지 소화 동해를 소화 동해 다 이내양 동해를 다 내가 동해를 이내양 다 랑이 셈 마지고 여기 나자 되게 좋은 차도 랑이 동해 되게 바 쌍마 다르고 다는 그 동해도 봤세 다네 꼭 대화를 끼야 귤에 누구요 세상 안 하는 것도 대화도 동해세다 하다가 좀 어디 최고의 규제들이 가르스나 대화도 동해생이야 뭐좀 뭐 맞추나 아니 동해를 대화지 대화를 동해지 아니 아주 간 추도고 여러 가지다 네 맞추야 된다 대화도 동해도 모두 지기 어려서
And in a lived life, in our ordinary lived lives, what we experience as mental hardship and physical pain, insofar as they are feelings and sensations, they are painful feelings and sensations. And so temporarily they are painful feelings. But once they arise, then they pass, and with their passing is eliminated that very pain and suffering. And insofar as the pain and suffering is eliminated, then it becomes satisfaction and pleasure. And so why is it that we provide an introduction to pain and sorrow and satisfaction and contentment that we do here? We do for the reason that if that identification of what is pain and sorrow and contentment and satisfaction isn't made, then we will continue to misconstrue the painful feeling for the pleasurable feeling and the pleasurable feeling for the painful feeling. So we make this introduction. Then if one were to practice, then they would do so by applying Dromtonva's response. This life dispense with it. This life dispense with it. 2 times repeated. This would be integrated to one's practice.
내가 제인하자 마지고네 마주 제인하자 이지고네 그랬으면은 남산 오 다들 지된 취지에다 저와 총고 야고래 마서 오 다들 야고래서 지된 취지에다 제 마서 야고래서 스스로 셈나는 아 장세지야 냠내지야 강가 딜란 창교로서 상하지도 지된 취지에다 방고 장가도 약고서 야고래서
The 8 worldly considerations would be remembered, recalled again and again, so that whatever one does, whether their physical actions or their speech, whatever their action, one can recognize, oh, here is a mundane consideration. Oh dear, here is a mundane consideration. And in this way, clear up the mundanity and improve the consideration as one goes.
뭐야, 따지봐도 먼저 드리고 진짜게 뭔가
Now, this is just an introduction to the topic today, how one would best consider these.
남샤 시베 가도들 사람 될래요. 이내 딱 아주 니모 되게 랑이 율라 파지 니모도 주고 뭐시에 더다 셈 차라 남시도 뭐 마시나 니모도 저 시제 가고 이거 이제 니모도 이제 뭐시에 니모도다 니미시야다 니모도다 뭐 쳐야 된다. 아무 셈 말아도 수수 셈 니모도 셈 가르지어래. 계획 셈 가르지어래. 되게 영향 무엇이야 또 셈 차라게 계지 시야 방대 되어 돼서
Now for our topic, what is our subject? We are presently reading the fourth chapter on conscientiousness, fourth chapter of the way of the Bodhisattva. This is part of a presentation of afflicted minds, mental afflictions. So the context is the presentation of mental afflictions. But in order to identify mental afflictions, we are considering the range and states of conscious awareness from coarse to subtle. For without such familiarization with the range of conscious awareness from coarse to subtle, it isn't easy to identify the perils of mental afflictions, and it isn't easy to familiarize ourselves with mental afflictions. Therefore, what is a virtuous state of mind and what is not, this depends upon some familiarity with conscious awareness, ranging from coarse to subtle.
먼저 단단하랑 나 세기 셈 예루 세즈도아 딜라다 나 세체 셈 예루 세 아주 숨도 당고 나 세다고로식 아니 되게 다고 제야들이 예루 세로 셈 세로다 되게디 모두 치료해서
Now the minds involved, such as self-identification in the notion of I myself, and then the notion of my mind and my body. This is how we express these things, don't we? We have something like an executor in the notion of I myself and belonging of my body and my mind to that executor.
Yeah, that's he do some nice na. That's just mingri or mingri mingri la jo na ye na me se na se ta se ge ta shi na se do de ta na se de ta ma zo ge na de ta tuma moma ta je wa moma ne ti je ba ina tuma me ba de ma to yong de ni tanda lu ji lang tanda ye ba je ma lu de ba me ba cha ne yang jo pa de ba do de ni na se ge ji ya re so ma.
Then I myself, each I themselves with their respective name, each of us with our own name, such that we refer to ourselves and say that I am not here or I am here. And there is some basis, some support where the notion of the self is planted. And then that is the self that is referred to as we, if we do, count the many previous embodiments, innumerable embodiments up until the present. These are that self, and then the present embodiment, and then the imminently departing embodiment. These are meant in this self.
Yeah, that said they do done. And then around land, my near my ken. And again, it and about the net, the net demand, but that chidu much you forget. Usual, you didn't, Yamdula. 중대이 셈죠. 일 루부 셈 시그레 라페 셈 시그레 예수스.
Therefore, in the present life, from the moment one is born from the womb of their mother. And so long as they are abiding here in the present existence, all the way up until their death. In this period, the notion of my mind is of a mind that is supervenient, it is adventitious, and it is a coarse state of conscious awareness.
사실 많이 해 차반에 지만 마시 저 사와 말랭이 바로 아시 치와 레그로 치와 말랭이 바르들라 아주 갈래 그래 메시지 예 메시지 그거 얘기 채직 얘기 메시지 어떤 메시지 대당 저와 유족 셈들라다 루부아 라바스 이거 그래서
Therefore, from the moment of conception in the womb of one's mother until the re-embodiment following one's death, between these two moments, that duration is the life, the lifespan, my life, my lifespan, and connected states of conscious awareness connected to this embodiment in this lifespan are states of conscious awareness that are supervenient, adventitious.
야디 라바 셈데 라바 이 셈데 라바다 아메 마잉에도 네 저도 아디네 너무 셈 라바 고주고 아디네 셈 라바 다만 시도도 셈 라바 바가니 야 참을 파이고 어제는 참원네 라바를 수있게 깨네 아니야 제마 시도도 참을 파팅 다 딜리그 버기는 아주 메시지 두고 열었습니다.
And so, of course, states of conscious awareness have begun with the first moment of conception, growing more coarse following the first moment of conception, growing from subtle minds into coarser minds, all the way until the moment of death, when, at the moment of death again, coarse states of conscious awareness give rise or are reduced to subtler states of conscious awareness. And therefore, the span of a lifetime involves the development of coarser states of conscious awareness from subtler states and the reduction of those coarser states into their subtler states.
That's similar. What did you call yours? No, they are Kadu Chavas and Nesha, Kadu never shower. Visit the music city, same the Chamon and Rapala, Rapan and Chamon by security, good music over as.
Then when we speak of when does it begin? And when does it end? When do the coarse states of mind first arise? And when do they cease? Their arising and then their ceasing takes place across the span of the human life.
That's some condition. Susu Sanje Sawatan, Chanju Sem Tobuletana, that one is with this watching Sarva. He may not have done Tigaran and Lower Esmus.
This is the case for any sentient being. A different matter for Buddha, for the highly adept, where there's some change in these states, but for all otherwise, this is the state of conscious awareness.
Sanje dan Sanju Semba Togo Dizugi, and that court. the Rebatina Dogu Mara. Romugoya Karisna cook sem Chamo Tiran, Chamo Tirana to Corage to be a mother, Chamon and Rabata, Laban and Chamos, the Domu Suesarva. They made it on that same them which has our essence.
For the Buddha, for the Bodhisattvas, those with their elevated aptitudes, their development no longer resembles the way in which we cycle through increasingly coarse and then ever subtler states of mind again and again. They have removed these coarse states of mind and are stable in subtle states.
Oh, yeah. That's a big thing. Amo kisi Sibashi, Kisi 당도 장가자다 버린 수 빼지나 저기 문제입니다. 요다. 다른 것도 가르쳐서 너무 미지기 너무 계시 계획시 봐. 얘네 모두지 세 봐. 얘네 치시 얘네 발시 오 시바시 어디 건들라 도사가 나가 시바시라고 그래서
There are four states of existence, a count by which any individual goes through four states of existences. The first state, the birth state or birth existence. The first state, birth state. The second, the living state. The third, the death state. And the fourth, the intermediate state or existence.
자기 꼬라잡이 물어봐. 야, 이 발시도 발시는 계시는 원주스가 어디 꼬라잡을 꼬라잡는데 꼬라잡기도나 다 코알 코 꼬라잡기 민도나 다 코알 타 어디 되실래요? 그래서
And one perpetually cycles from the intermediate state to the birth state, to the living state, to the death state, to the intermediate state, and so on. And it is known as a cycle of samsara. Or else one has become liberated from samsara.
예, 딱 셈라 화스리자면 항상 루북이 셈라 화스리 당만도 셈라가 항상 수수셈라 못 쳐봐. 아직 중요한 셈 챙기도 소스.
So then the core states of conscious awareness, which are supervenient states, I think that each of you, reviewing your own states of mind, has an idea of what these entail.
예, 네 시바 참모 육셈 세그래 육셈 시바 참모 아니 시바 명심바 왜세 치와 왜세 오셈 명들의 열애솜 참모.
As for the subtle mind, subtle states of conscious awareness, these are innate states. They are subtle states. They are the clear light. They are death's clear light.
예, that is 셈 참모 said. That 셈 참모 생일이 먼저 경험만이 대용 대단다 디니트 바치만도 단다 대치하게 윤투니 룰 단대 룰들라 되바 매바 룰디 매나야 도토이 대토니 용토니 오데데기 셈이도 어딜라다 시바 참모스다 그래서 룰디 유에다면 제발 매바 룰디 매나야 도토가 내도가 같이 도이 어디레시 셈지어 딜라다 용셈 세그레 아니 시바 참모 세그레 오 디다 디시 시바 참모 모르시 안데 데레서
That consciousness mind, which is a continuity and continuum since a beginningless beginning of samsara through the present, and is involved in the imminent departure to subsequent existences, such a continuum which is independent of any particular embodiment, which does not depend upon its physical instantiation, no difference whether there is physical support or not. Such a mind is a subtle mind. It is the innate mind, primordial mind.
예, 난 미지가 셈니니도 참모지다라고 니니요 도와스 다 셈니니 예나 아니 권익이 다 제레 다 아니 가도 두 자원점도 지금 말에 권익 가대 지그레 했다 좋아들어 세상다 뒤인데 셈 참모되게 내가 내도 셈 라바데 가도 셈 라바데 lep소나 또 저를 내가 지금 고쪽도나 셈 참모되 바라니에서 내가 지금 맞도서 되게 가도 말 이내 내가 지금 말 어디에 대해서
When subtle minds, different from four states of conscious awareness, are described and characterize any given person, then naturally one might wonder, then how do two kinds of minds in any given individual function simultaneously? It's a natural question. When subtle minds subtle states of conscious awareness are active, then coarse states of conscious awareness are inactive. When gross states of conscious awareness are active, the subtle underlying states of conscious awareness are dormant and inactive, though not absent.
That is it. That's same what they to get on you can get what is with some trauma to get. That's any but Lagache Chawache, young Tama Popa Gardu, some trauma de la Patim dogs, trauma de la Padudu, or the dish your resonance.
Where do the coarse states of conscious awareness emerge from? They emerge from subtle states of conscious awareness present at birth. They emerge, develop, and become operative until they gradually become inactive in the end of the life.
Oh, yeah. That's what Yamena gets a share on the Zambata and that the Bashi on you. Yamena, the Bashi on you. That's one of the Tandang to the same Chamu they want to go to Yagi. Nobody Tandang on your marriage. And then on to the same Lapak, Lagachi, your lessons.
How is a series in practice? How is this sequence actualized in practice? The subtle mind itself and a transformation into subtle states of conscious awareness isn't available to us. We must work first with coarse states of conscious awareness.
Oh, and then on to Karijang to was that Manzubi, same Chamu de la Yard, Laga Chetuagi, Chaji Yoyala, and same Rabat Jonder Chen, same Rabat Paka, Kagi, same Chamu de la Kazu to do to do Yan or teacher, and Italian Yamenti to see your resonance.
What are we able to train? We are able to begin to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness. We are able to gradually develop a potential to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness by gradually, repeatedly deactivating coarse states of conscious awareness. This is our present context for this ongoing explanation.
Boy, that wonder, todo tartuna sem Chamotegi Lagachi Guyer. In a Tanda, some Chamotegi Lagachi Tuela, Manzuku Jonder, Mambu Majena, and some Chamotegi Lagachi Suyo Mare auditions.
Where we stand then is in our awareness that subtle states of conscious awareness themselves must be exercised. However, we aren't yet able to exercise them. In order to develop the capacity to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness, we must get engaged in certain training.
Boy, that is I Tandala, some Chamola Lega, Tuya Tandala, Chansadi, or Johnson, Lulu Lu de la Sem Tara Yovanaji, Lu de la Tara, Yantishi resonance.
In order to engage in these trainings, the very trainings which gradually allow us to exercise subtle states of conscious awareness, we begin by training the physical body for just as there are coarse states of conscious awareness and subtle states of conscious awareness, there are coarse physical states and subtle physical states.
Oh, yeah, that Louis de la Yan, Louis Rapa, Louis Chamotaji, Sema Javanaji, Louis Layan, the Java resonance.
Corresponding to coarse states of conscious awareness and subtle states of conscious awareness, there are coarse physical states and subtle physical states.
Oh, yeah. Taking also, this is Louis Rapa, Tilla, then is make same dela, same rapas laiba. Chetata same rapa the pejo tanya new dela, new rapas. Pajar. I used to join as a pajar. 셈 참모 다 때니 아니 바게다 내가 지고 얘기 뉴들 뉴 참모 들 룽스 룽 참모라 그래 뉴룽라 그 명들 뉴룽 아니 뉴셈 사이바 따라 뉴룽 뉴멜룽 아니 뉴 자와나지 뉴라고 이와나지 셈라고 이와나지 뉴라고 체 셈라고 해주 다니기 뉴들 뉴라고 체 셈 참모님도 내가 지니기 뉴들 뉴 참모 어디에서
Coarse physical states that are the basis for coarse states of conscious awareness have their counterpart in subtle physical states that are the support and basis for subtle states of conscious awareness. Therefore, where the subtle states of conscious awareness would be exercised, they are exercised through the basis and support of the underlying subtle physical state. That underlying subtle physical state is described as primordial wind, primordial moving wind, just as there is innate mind, there is innate moving wind or primordial moving wind. Therefore, where the subtle mind would be exercised, it is exercised through the primordial moving wind.
Oh, yeah. What did they do? That Luraba, Semraba. Luchamo, Sem Chamos. Oh, that other Sem the Luni Butigi. Sem get Chawa Karichiga Yuman, under Lula ten Chipu. Oh, Lutar, Rurapa a little, yes. Sem the Luni Buti, Pazu Java, solo a Kagoyo, yes, Kagoyo. Inayang, Sem Chamokana Rudi, that Lula Mademba, Sem Chawa Chitu Yamar. Sem the Luni Buti, Chamoni Buti. 간다 본인 찍을 찍대는 거 저지 마도 본인 오이메 간다 예치 마도 간다 추니 제바이나 아니 디추디리 디디레서 예치도 말아 되나시 셈 참고를 리디 롱다 셈 니보데 제니 오직도 요레스 바라고 저도 공어 타데 통되와 어디를 지어레스
So, coarse physical states with corresponding coarse states of conscious awareness. We have here coarse physical states, coarse states of conscious awareness, subtle physical states, and subtle states of conscious awareness. There they are then, mind and body, that states of conscious awareness depend upon underlying physical states, that there is such a relationship is difficult to clearly comprehend through coarse states of conscious awareness themselves. It is difficult to sense the way in which subtle states of conscious awareness are indivisible and dissoluble from underlying subtle physical states. But at the subtlest level, subtle states of conscious awareness and underlying subtle moving winds are indivisible and indissoluble as water into water are indivisible. But at a coarser level, it is more often the case that the mind and the body are seen as separate and discrete.
뭐 뒤에서 뭐다 가르쳐 알았으면 쌤이 저와 지도 쌤 그랑 내가 쪽으로 와서 쌤이 내가 지도 저와 지도 쌤 유를 쌤 되게 가르쳤다 다 유다 봐봐 유통화가 유를 봐 주바디 쌤이 저와 레데 이는 쌤 유를 주바디 룰라 마템바 쌤 유를 주투야 요말 유를 봐 쌤 요저 쌤도 Dine pardo pane yado yidu pardo su yong che kangalo lungu toku chiwa. Lung pardo di sem pardo, lung su yong di sem su yong. Ini kaduine dong nyamdo lung do na sem do, lung de na sem de. Go dili chibu yo. Sina di yindu ani sem yula chawa cheba do yula juba di lungu toku chibu yo resi. Chesan lung da sem nibu di kaduine ngo yemeji.
Now, during a cognitive process, during a mental event, a mental action, such as perception of an object, the processing of an object requires an object for there to be vision, something seen, something processed. And it's a mental activity. But without the underlying moving wind energies, there's no directing conscious awareness this way or that way or any way whatsoever. In order to process or to perceive an object, the mind itself depends upon the underlying subtle moving wind, and therefore, ultimately, the mind and the body are indivisibly one.
아니 쌤 이용아 치고는 봐도 요 치고 이나야 루 요스나 쌤 요거래 루 내서나 쌤 내기를 해서
Therefore, the state of awareness and the underlying moving wind are indivisible. For there to be conscious processing of an object, there must be the underlying moving wind, which directs conscious awareness. Therefore, where the underlying moving winds are in motion, the mind is in motion. Where the underlying moving winds are still, the mind is still.
단단하죠. 띵이지 그거 띵이지 셔럽스. 동반이 또 셔럽. 동이 무슨도 또 셔럽. 동이 또 띵이지. 어떤 아주 대시 자야지. 쌤 참은 되기 쌤이 내로 파랑 무슨도 통서나 아니 동이 무슨도 통하. 내가 냠샤이시 시그레 아니 콜 동이 또 셔럽 시그레 동이 또 띵이지 시그레 세단 코 쌤 농기 마요와 내 동반이기 되나 그 무슨 쌤들아 내 무슨 탈도와 통화이자 그 동반이기 되는 통화스 그걸 더 너무 장주고 쌤 새로 어떤 비례 예수
Samadhi, mental stabilization, wisdom, the wisdom realizing emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, the samadhi of direct realization of emptiness. These put variously in these ways, are subtle wind perceiving emptiness, such that we call this an equipoise state of stillness of the mind, of wisdom realizing emptiness, samadhi realizing emptiness, an unmoving state in which the ultimate nature of phenomena are perceived. Thus, emptiness is seen, and this is ultimate Bodhichitta.
쌤 참은 되기 쌤이 되게 동반이 또 용도 아니 그 가르쳐 말해서나
sim chamadi chamadigi
눈통하다 쌤 코랑이 되게 동이 또 와. 룽 많이 왔지. 룽지 쌤으로 와싱해로 와. 쌤 참은디 룽 네버 인자 바 쌤이 네버 와. 쌤 내도 좀 가르내고 가을 내가 쌤 그런 게 되게 동반이 되게 내가 나와 쌤 그런 게시쌤 주의 되게 주의 모습도 또 바로 봐 다시 또 용도 삼아 쌤 참고 되게 돈이 또 봐. 쌤 참고 되게 돈이 또 봐. 이들 하고 가르쳐 버려서 싸 당고 터 봐. 아서 싸 당고 터 봐. 싸 당고 터 봐. 아니 네가 놓고 돈이 모습도 또 봐. 본냠샤 이시베. 거기 받았고 남 창주고 쌤 공화 교육 제가 어디서 자기가 그래서
It is the mind that realizes emptiness. It realizes emptiness when the underlying winds are still, and the mind itself abides in the realization of emptiness. It is the mind that realizes emptiness, the basis of the realization, the nature of phenomena as they are. Nature as it is seen, it is the subtle mind that perceives the nature of reality on the basis of the unmoving, still wind. And with that, then the first bhumi is realized. It is realized through the direct realization of emptiness, a state of meditative equipoise in wisdom, and it is ultimate bodhichitta, the realization of the first bhumi.
뭐야 짧게 냠는디 제고 요가 인도 냠는디 제야가 된다라 먼저 계산 팀을 시에 직세 아니 나가나라야 무슨 말인지 시야가 어디서 간가로 딱 간다 리버디 샘 참고 동번이 둬야게 다 답은 아니 답이 시야가 된다라 아니 냠는디 되게 리버디 시기 열에서
When an exercise is required for this realization, and one must train in those exercises, we then present the dissolution states and the taking of the three Buddha bodies onto the path as trainings for these realizations in order for subtle mind to realize emptiness. Methods for the development of the ability to make the realization through such practices are presented.
뭐야 룸 장난 샘 네버지 샘 네버는 샘버티 네버를 때는 샘 동반이 무슨 도구를 떠버릴 때는 아니 냠는 체가 되면 되게 우리가 어디에서 그리 좀 들어서 되는 저거 있는 순간은
So that subtle state of conscious awareness will abide in stillness upon the still moving winds. We exercise the moving wind energies so that in stillness, the subtle mind may realize emptiness and thereby realize the complete fullness of the practice. And now, if there are any questions, we open for Q&A.
뭐야 다 팀을 다 생긴 제시기 스틸 가지고 원영아 시에 차로 왔다 팀을 시에 되지 들렸지만 시유지에서
Next week, we will review the stages of dissolution. Last week, we presented the 25 gross objects. Next week, the stages in dissolution.
다수 샘 아니 마세요 더워이나 그 나베체에서
Now, if there's something that isn't quite clear, then through conversation, maybe clarified.
그래서
Bodhisattva, I would love some clarification on the relationship between the gross breath and the subtle wind. And in particular, my assumption is that the capacity to still the subtle wind is there for lengthy periods of time, despite the coming and going of the regular breath. Else, one would have to hold one's breath for 4 hours, which seems like an impossibility in the human body. And so, yeah, some clarification on that point would be really good.
Oh yeah, then gesi 내가 직라 사실 나나 사실 나고야 가려요. 나나 다디 uk rapa yorwa. uk rapa da 아니 롱차모기 개발. 왜나 다 소소기 아니 롱차모디 아니 미요어 네톱나 데네 심차모디게 아니 뭐연 내다데 뭐연 내롭데 톡토바. 톡토백 차겐데 아니 롱차모디 존다르체야 되래. 다 데네야 데 롱차모다 uk rapa 데니기 바로라 개발직 요래. 가인스는 uk rapa de uk 중업 들어와. uk 중업 데 말이다. 뭐유 내단 또야라. 추서 시기랭라. uk 중업 체네. uk 파르탄 술 무비야 매바 된데 고기 요나. 데 시기 말해. 내는 잡어. 기지. 하고 봐.
No, that is just that the long 장과 책으로 장과 맞이나 이거 말아 장난 이거를 얘기했었어.
다 가르사 종업대 추도 시기랭라 아니 옥체네 대토바
장과 장과 뒤고로 다 롱의 상황 거와 롱의 상황 돈나 아니 롱가토로 롱땅토로 롱 내가 망고요 그래서
First one must exercise their moving winds in order to control the moving winds. When full control control is realized in one, all of the activities of the moving winds, such as exhalation and inhalation, are also controlled. 아니 띵게든지 그래.
띵이지 가족들이 제 친구 유나요? 생애지 제 칠로 따네 우도 좀 소소고. 제 친구 소토를 해서
In degrees of control and aptitude in samadhi, one gains further degrees of control over their respiration.
하나는 좀 마장바라고 마장나 내라고 말하고 항상 장도 말해 롱다 라완 소로 롱다 라완 소로 롱다 라완 토벨 담보 롱 장사데 당도 롱 라바들 장니 네 라바데 파 춤춤춤춤춤다 잠모가나 춤셔셔셔 당 도시 장으로 해서
We presently haven't exercised or trained at all. Therefore, it isn't easy for us now. We have to, through exercise, gain control over the moving winds. And we begin to gain the control over the moving winds through exercises of the coarse breathing. Exercises in coarse breathing and greater control allows for increased control over the subtle moving winds, and the coarse respiration is reduced.
예, 먼저 단다 나나 신의 두배 시험도 신의 두마도 그 세상도 롱이 좋아 추진이 이마저 수준이 잡시 수준이 잡시나네 네 수준이 잡시도 두로 하고 거네 네 시제 두로 거네 차직 롱 종으로 나한테 두고도나 하는 거 신의 더 봤어 세들이 샤요라서
Within the secret mantrayana, within the mantrayana, the measure of mental concentration is made by dividing the 24 hours into 4 6-hour periods. And when for one of those 4-hour periods, control over respiration has been achieved, and the subtle wind remains unmoving, this then is the realization of samadhi. Tersa yomaris. Tadati and long trauma di jong.
롱 정도를 맞아봐. 그래도 롱라고 정보라고는 정말 장으로 봐. 그래서 네 장도를 맞아봐. 아니 봐 나게 냠내 먹지. 랑가요 말해서.
More will be presented having to do with the Mandrayanas wind exercises, the levels of generation stage and completion stage. And so long as there is no control over subtle moving winds, then there is no realization of the fullness of the path of the Mandrayana. One begins in the exercise of the coarse moving winds to develop capacity in control of subtle moving wind.
거의 근데 롱이 내줄 냠내 지어라 인지미지 최고 냠내들 게 거는 수요 롱이 냠내 제 롱조가 냠내 세 토보던데 최고 된데 개 말에는 롱이 냠내 제 토보 롱을 랑 토베 되네 망고 여서
Even without accepting dharma per se, through exercise of the moving winds, in no relation to training in dharma otherwise, through simply exercising the moving winds, high levels of realization may be achieved.
롱이 냠내 다들 자인의 얘기 거니까 만 제시 용을 했습니다.
Yet again, in the future, this explanation will come again.
신발이 그랬습니다.
Other question?
예, 앉아를 있습니다.
Thank you so much. This is complicated. And I think it's going to take us quite a while to understand and get to know it and understand it. So there was a lot of material right here. And for example, when it was mentioned that we train our body, both coarse and subtle physical states. So does that mean we train our body through the wind, coarse and subtle wind? Because here, the physical states here, my understanding from listening is, and it may not be correct, is that it's the wind. So if it's coarse physical state, that means coarse moving wind corresponding with coarse state of consciousness or coarse mind. Whereas the subtle physical state, which is subtle moving wind, corresponding with subtle mind. Is my understanding correct?
예, 이슬라데 기시기 저자디 녀생 지와라. 녀생 첨보래. 다 아니 맞아. 계속 변다 또야라. 뒤서 망고 거르게. 다 간신은 남샵 계신 게 버래. 다 나는 해 고야라. 다 직진은 거시 로네. 야만에 직진은 고샤단 노르네. 노리나. 따따따 하고 나서 이나야. 고 덴스 차요. 아. 맞아. 이 le rapide dans sim rapide. Le trauma dans sim trauma ni yo yo. Ah, deneya. 맞아, le rapide di jondar chegre. Tene tawachi koso. Le rapide di jondar chegona. Ani lung rapide di jondar chegoba. 다 되네요. 아니 루 trauma jondar chego나 되네요. 룽 참어디 아니 종달 제거봐 어디 차서 다 용생 가르스나 데다 루라과 종달 지참 제바 데라 파페 데참게 아니 심 라파기 랑왕 토기레 다 자와 덴데스 체네 디 가르스라브레 랑왕데 토기레 다니 고와 샤탄데 간레 디르베 디서버 자소네
그래. 나들었지. 나 정보지라는 맞아. 고알렌 카보를 세저로디 다 수수기 좀 봐. 냠내나. 수수수기 니만니만에 냠내 제외는 뭐 아주 숙심부 제외는 대세기 냠내 숙심부 나오면 원래 영으로 와서 뭐 찍었습니다.
First, you describe how difficult this is to comprehend. How difficult it is to comprehend depends ultimately upon the energy with which you practice daily. Insofar as the daily practice is disciplined, then it will come to be understood.
yes. 이 냠내 수치에나 빌어 또 버째라는 냠내 마시는 또 버째디 요 말에. 냠내 제니 또 버째 많이요 요 말에. 세상 이들 냠내 수치와 제배는 빌어 또 버째 요버디 이 뭐에는 지지 그래서
Whoever practices will realize this. When one cannot realize this, and there is no such thing as practicing and never realizing. That's the actual state of affairs.
뭐야? 다디네 걔랑 저와서 노시가 더 봐이나? 나 당고 걔랑 고단 노르마레 대가나래. 아, 디인지 걔랑 뉴라고 단단한 쪽에 류 참모들라. 류 참모다 셈 참모라. 맞으기 남산 거기 라고 창초죠 요 말에. 오 다만데 셈 참모다 류 참모가 내가 제발라. 류라고다 셈 참모라 랑 뭔고 톱네. 원래 정도는 망고 제나만도 참모가는 어디 내가 지투기 말해서
And then addressing the actual question itself, nowhere are you wrong. You have got it exactly. For control over physical and mental states, in order to detect subtle physical states and subtle mental states, one must engage in exercises to gradually develop more control.
뭐야? 딱이 간다. 락과네 락과라야 락과 참모라고 저들이 이거 망고요. 근데 락과네 락과가 간다고 락과 지가 니가 숨가는 락과 막 차를 땅 아니 참모가 바보래서
There are coarse states developing from other coarse states, giving rise to more coarse states giving rise to coarser states, and so on. And then coarser states attenuating into subtler states and subtler states. Now, the exercise is to deactivate a coarse state and deactivate the next coarse state. And through the deactivation of coarser states, finally alight upon subtle states.
뭐야? 제가 내가 인도 다 많아도 먼저 단다 시에고 윤신들의 가진 그 들어오만 나고 팀림 기준 바 시에는데 팀림디 라원 매버 팀림 요난 찍단 랑게 정대로 친 힘을 연다니 가지고 것이 약사로 와서.
And the reason this explanation is given at all, and the explanation of the dissolution stages, is for the reason that there are there is dissolution that is involuntary, and then there is the dissolution stages which are voluntarily induced.
뭐야, 세상 대비 다 아주 수수가 라왕 체네 롱 드름디 체라 다 담고 아주 롱 라바디 세 장니 장서데 롱 라바디를 세 장나는 거 라바디 라바네 차도 땅에 아니 참으로 되지 땅 토야 이제 답시 치고 이야기해서
What one must do is exercise increasingly subtle manipulation of the moving winds as part of exercise of the voluntarily induced dissolution stage.
근데 이제 좀 아주 간단 수수고 롱이 좋아 롱 중국들 한단 아마도 롱 중국들 아니 수수고 정도로 롱 무비야 돼 너무 중국 아니 롱네 아니 롱 파트냐 땅 어디에 지나 땅보다 내지 자 니네 거 두주 까마지 니 까마니 아니 주주 얘네 주주 직니 순전 그것이 아니 주주 바르고 땅 장고마도 당물람 산대도 되려 말해서.
And then the exercise of the moving winds through inhalation and exhalation. Inhalation and exhalation may be used as basis of training. One inhales, holds the inhaled breath, then exhales. And this is a beginning point. One does this for a minute, increases the time to 2 minutes, increases it again to an hour, to 2 hours. It isn't as though without the exercise, one can immediately control their breath.
또 내가 내저도 되는 연구 여러 이리도 많이 가져다 니만니만 수수비 냠내나 나 라면내죠 냠내지도 아니 룽조비 냠내다 그래서 가가 냠도 연구 여러 그러니까 간다 간도게 수수비 다 랑이 쪼와 가서 침부 채워 있는 되나지 그 좋아지 냠내도 충분 연구로 와 랑이 당원에 냠내 춘지만도 채면 아니 좋아 침부도 용투고 말아서는 뒤니 나도 이만이면 나 맞다 배나 가지고 이만치 나는 차샤와이나 가지고 내 이만치 나는 가지고 좋아나라 이니도 좀봐 아주 팀링 좀 봐. 거기 팀링 냠내 제가 좀 봐도 때때때 지고 지켜한다 연구요 말도 저도 연구. 그냥 가지고 지 거기 무슨 내가 가지고 팀링 좀 봐요. 영사기 그냥 가지고 전부 계주도 팀링 그래 봤는데 지금 연구하래. 아니 가서 어머 냠저렇게 좋아지도 팀링 좀 봐도 지금 다 수수가 수고 세게 좀 팀링 좀 봐요. 아마 시샤로 일단 데이도 가지고 다 나는 저 가르치기나 건강할다. 이제서 맞다. 나도 팀링 좀 봐도 냠내도 시작도 좀 그런 게 있으면 셈봐. 아니 나게 이만이만 냠내나 로스키니 네 장거래스 어디지 좀 봐.
Exercises of moving winds are involved in generation stage practices. The generation stage practices and the whole context of the mantrayana involves exercise of moving winds. Exercise of moving winds incorporated into daily practice. The incorporation of the exercise of the moving winds is part of the Anattara Yoga Tantra. And insofar as the feeling for the practice is very great, then it will follow that one, in fact, practices in such a way as to make progress without a feeling for the greatness involved in the practice. There won't be the deliberate incorporation of practices on a daily basis, but on a daily basis, there are many events that resemble the dissolution, the involuntary dissolution phase. They aren't identical to this dissolution phase, but they resemble it. Therefore, when one goes unconscious, there is a moment resembling dissolution. In coitus, there may be a moment resembling dissolution. In physical experience, in many daily activities, there are moments when the dissolution stage makes its appearance, and so that you remember that it may, and daily incorporate practices in dissolution. I make this presentation.
Okay, you say on you same better, but want to do what is that? How to need to the mother in that same Tara soon, but you are resource. You do
And in course, in sleep state too, there is a sequence through coarse states of conscious awareness into subtler states of conscious awareness, such that deep sleep involves no feeling, is only a mental state. The dreaming state involves more coarse conscious awareness, and then upon awaking into the waking state, states of conscious awareness have become overall coarse again. And in death's clear light dawns after a sequence of the emergence of ever more subtle states of conscious awareness, the subtle state attenuating again to a subtler state, and again to a very subtle state. This progression, or this sequence in the death state, insofar as there's a dedication to applying oneself, insofar as one is dedicated to applying oneself, then there will be a corresponding development in realization. The interest in application will be the measure by which one will later know any realization or not. And in 24 hours, when we dedicate only a very short time to these exercises, naturally, we find the practices themselves implausible. We imagine that they are not realistic, that we cannot realize them, that it will do just as well to begin another time. And these thoughts are the greatest obstacle to progress. And now we will close with our closing prayers and the very same material, the series involved here will come up again in the future, and as it does, it will only grow clearer. We have what we need in my consulting with reference texts and you bringing your questions, and in this exchange we will continue to clarify anything that isn't yet clear and improve in our understanding. And in this way, our analytic meditation will be deepened. Thank you very much, and now allow us to recite our closing prayers.
Lume mare je don rowa ye na re jave ombo na juje ema sumbe zera kudu ya jave yamje tsewe je zone Pembe rinpo kusan lam je jo nyene gube je na nye je Lagi je je dobe lam je ne shura tsewe jave tage Rove yiji mba seje ne jawe temba yure zenyu ji temba rinche choji ma jamba jaja nyamba jirwe chonte Niji jembe yirama jeba yi vede tenje sewa jeba seje gyawe mejun chile le dro chanju lamje rembe gyang Tadu nange yela bede gawe zeba rindu gyungirji Tansan rube tunjin ruje je gege seje meda mimi Tera kundu gawe mamba yi namda lamda rewa mangirji Kanze tibo jula juju je sujin ruba zumba deyze Tuden nange takun roje je, taji jaso chugun jagurji.
From my two collections, vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort at the practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief completing Buddha for all those whose minds' wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my life and my wishes. May I find the best of the paths of complete teaching, and may I please all the Buddhas by practicing. Using skillful means drawn by a strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings, with the points of the path as I have discerned them. May I uphold Buddha's teachings for a very long time. With my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I offer this treasure of happiness to it all sentient beings. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be granted boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time by following the complete graduated path of enlightenment and the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings that eliminate adversity and make things conducive for practicing the excellent path. Never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
Dagi jinye sabe gyawa di dendan doha guna gambe kebara jindu losan draba yi tebe nimbo rindu seche kare rawe korwe shinga de bena dewa maru jungbe tebe zewa tenze gyazo yi shabe side bagu dengyur che Yang Baba Jeda Gemba Dao Kundu Zambo Deyang Deji Deda Kunji Jesu Dalo Je Gewa Deda Tamji Radu Luzu Shebe Gewa Tamji Je Mowa Ganga Chodu Ngapa De Dagi Gewe Sawa Digur Sambo Jeje Radu Mowa Janju Simcho Rimbo Je Maje Bana Je Yurche Yeva Nyamba Neva Kone Kondo Kawa.
I dedicate whatever virtues I have ever collected for the benefit of the teachings and of sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. In the land encircled by snow and mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful genius, tenth and council, please remain until psychic existence is ended. Just as the brave Manjushri and Samantabhadra too realize things as they are, also I dedicate all these merits in the best way, that I may follow their perfect example. I dedicate all these roots of virtue with the dedication raised as the best by the victorious thus gone ones of the three times, so that I might perform the noble Bodhisattva deed. May the supreme jewel of Bodhichitta that is not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Thank you all very much.